Good morning. You guys, it's snowing again in Michigan. And I don't understand why. It's not that bad, but it is in fact snowing. And it is in fact freezing cold. There are a few projects at the shop that we need to work on before I can start working on the Subaru today, but that is the plan. I think today is gonna be a fix/repair day because obviously it is snowing, so I'm not gonna be pulling my car out and sanding my bumper and whatnot. I don't know exactly what we're gonna get into today, but I just wanted to start the video off and we will see where the day goes. Alrighty dudes, don't be like me and not properly tuck your wiring harness before you lower your car, because you will rub through your wiring harness, which is a super fun problem to deal with. I'm getting started on the Subaru today with repairing this wiring harness because, like I said, when I lowered my car and added the camber, my tires started rubbing against my wiring harness, which I didn't know was happening until I jacked my car up a few weeks ago and then realized that, which is also why previously I was having some issues with my taillights. They were flickering when it was raining. I'm 99% sure this would be the reason why. There are a few wires that are exposed. None of them are torn, but I'm going to properly reseal all of these and then tuck the harness back to where it was. I broke all these zip ties that were holding the harness up there. So now it's loose down here. We have some room to play with it. I'm picking out all the wires that need to be re-spliced and resealed. And then I will do each of those individually. Now that I separated the bad wires from the good ones, I'm going to chunk out each section that has been rubbed through. So I'm going to cut each side of the wire and then I'm going to solder in a new strand of wire and then seal it, and then we should be good to go. So I have this chunk here of thinner gauge, and then I have 3 of these thicker gauge wires down here that started to rub through a little bit. So that is the game plan. So this is absolutely terrifying to me and very worrisome, but you gotta fix it, so I have to do this. Here are some examples of the wires that were a little bit rubbed through. So yeah, don't be like me, guys. Either tuck your wiring harness better, or I don't know, don't lower your car so much. Unfortunately, the same thing was happening on the passenger side up here. I'm gonna cut this tape back a little more on each side to make sure that none of the wires are exposed and assess the situation from there. Alright, you guys. We are getting a lesson in soldering from
this guy.
This guy. Say hi.
Yo.
He owns the shop.
So usually I like to pre-solder all the ends. And so the big thing is, like, sure, you think that's good, but you want to get it all the way around.
I'm gonna say, so you cover the whole.
Yeah, and you can actually kind of load it up a little bit on here, because it's not like.
So you dab it onto the pen.
Yeah, you can do both. I mean,
basically just melt it so it's covering.
Yeah, so you want to get the whole
wire.
thing. Yep. Just try to get everything around. It doesn't take a lot. Like, you don't need a whole lot of solder either. A lot of people overdo it. It's literally just a coating.
Okay.
So bring them together. Get that dirty piece on.
So you don't add more when you're doing this? You
there's
just
plenty.
use the existing?
Yep.
Okay.
And wait till they're dry. I'd say dries, but cools down.
Hardens, yeah.
Yeah. And then just look at it and make sure, you know, like you could add some to the backside if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But that's and then I always like to pull on it
Okay.
but that's not going anywhere. Like we'll shrink tube all these.
Okay.
And so one thing I do like to do though is always look at how you soldered and check for anything that would maybe be like would cause like to get exposed. So like if you had like a pointy edge
if
or
it's too
anything.
sharp.
Yeah. So like sometimes you can come in and just kind of like it's almost like you're crimping it just to make it clean.
Okay.
The other thing too is if you don't like it looks like a bad solder, just heat it back up.
Okay.
And then
redo it.
Yeah, just redo it. But the big thing
What would
is
a bad solder be?
like if you get it cold.
Okay.
And so like if you melted them and then kind of stuck them together rather than melting everything at the same time, holding the heat to it, making sure they're connected, and then pulling it away.
Gotcha.
So it's almost like think of like kind of like welding where you don't need to overdo it. So then like the one issue everyone usually makes is they don't put people forget to put shrink tube on.
Yeah.
Before, and so then you'll connect a wire and they're like.
Oh,
Shit.
dude, yeah, I would totally do that.
It happens all the time.
I would totally do that.
So, yeah. So like I'd bring it right down to the wire.
Like touching?
Yep. Just kind of melt it on.
Oh.
Yep. So like something like, so imagine like, see how they kind of had like a tip to it?
Yeah.
When you pull, so that's something where you'd want to like, if you put these two pieces together, you wouldn't want that because it could potentially poke through.
Crimp it down, or would you reheat it?
Either or. I would probably like if it was big, I'd probably reheat it. So you can load it on the tip or just melt it right down to the, but you just, again, it's just coating the wire. Surgery.
Yeah, feels like it.
And like, feel free to like use more of like the side of the point. I'm just gonna go back and forth to melt them. Yeah. That's pretty much it. And then, the big thing is you want to make sure that these two wires are as close together as possible. Like, you don't want necessarily, you want the wires closer, like, you don't want necessarily like all the solder holding it together because it could easily break too.
Right. So can I melt it apart?
You can. Just gonna go back and forth, melt it. Try to melt them both at the same time. You load it on, like this is a small piece. And usually you can do this with a torch, a heat, like whatever, a heat gun. I usually like to use a heat gun or a lighter, like not like a map torch, just because you want to keep the heat down. So this is just a scrap piece. But you could take a lighter. Just like, you don't need a whole lot of heat. But just make sure you get both ends covered, like I usually go to, because you want to make it at least somewhat water sealed. So there's a lot of heat that comes out of this little guy. So it's just evenly rotating around. So that's it. And then as you make sure you do like, don't wait till the end to do them all. Like as you do a wire, shrink it, just because last thing you want to do is try to like when you finish one, then go to another. And if you didn't shrink the other one, if you're using a lot of heat in a certain area, it might start shrinking it.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Not explained the taping process, so let me do that real quick. The first layer I did was this rubber electrical tape, which is a little thicker than normal electrical tape. When I put this on, I was like stretching it as I roll it around. And this is for waterproofing purposes. And then after I did a layer of that, I did a layer of just normal electrical tape over that to seal everything in. And now she looks beautiful. Would you look at that? I was a little terrified half an hour ago when everything was still cut in half. But I think this looks pretty legit. I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, but I was also rubbing on my passenger wiring harness, but not as bad as the driver's side. So I'm just gonna redo the tape like I did on the driver's side for this side. I don't have to cut and solder any wires. And now we're doing the same to the other side. So I'm gonna start with my rubber tape, like I said. Okay, I just had this thought while I'm tucking it away. So this is where it normally sits. Like it sits in these two plastic little clips here. But I'm wondering, there's like room up here if I tuck it up there, then it will never rub on my wheel. Even though I want to raise my car, I don't know, I don't want to risk it. So I think I'm gonna pull my fender off and see if I can tuck it up there. If not, I will just put it back to where it was. But I think if I could tuck it up there and have it be secure, that would kind of be ideal. So I'm gonna pull this fender off real quick. I gotta pull the headlight, and then there's a few bolts for this, and it should pop right off. I have the best idea ever.
Okay.
I can tuck it up here, well, if I can.
Why didn't you just do that in the first fucking place?
I didn't think I was gonna rub through it.
No, but why didn't you just take this off to work on it in the first place?
It wasn't that bad.
I know, but why didn't you just...
Because I just had the idea.
Okay.
Alrighty, you guys, I am pretty pumped because my idea worked. I got both harnesses tucked up here, and I made sure they fit when the fender was on first before doing this. And then also realized this whole thing would have been way easier if I took the fender off in the first place, but that's okay. Now I know for the future that it'll probably be easier just to take the whole fender off. It honestly was not that bad at all trying to get in there. I had plenty of space, but definitely just would have had way more space. This is what the passenger side's looking like. I did the same thing, a zip tied to the same point, and then I wiped a ton of dirt out of here, and then I'm gonna throw both fenders back on, put the headlights back in, put the wheels back on, drop it down, and I think we're gonna call that a day. So I'm gonna start cleaning up, putting the fenders back on. Let's get to it.
A little bit.
She did it!
How excited is she?
I'm so happy.
Oh, her wiring harness?
You want to see? I'll show you a photo of it before.
So, alright, hey, let's try not to get carbon monoxide poisoning.
I hate
What's it gonna do?
Alrighty you guys, I just packed up everything at the shop and now I'm heading home. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below, as well as follow my Instagram. It is ej.uwu. And I am so pleased that all the electrical systems seem to still be working. I was a little concerned that something might go wrong, and I don't know, I was just kind of freaking out, like, what would I do if I fucked up the wiring harness? I'd have to get a new wiring harness and then wire everything again. But luckily that was not the case. Everything went smoothly. I know my tire will never rub on my wiring harness again. I have a little bit of PTSD from this experience for sure. But now I know if I lower a car, make sure to properly tuck everything in the first place so that you don't run into a fun issue like I did. But don't worry, because if you did, it is fixable. And I don't know if you guys ran into this issue. Hopefully this video helped you, maybe you learned a thing or two. Things are starting to pick up on the Subaru build, which I'm excited about. I got some parts picked up yesterday for powder coating. And I have a few parts that I got in the mail last week to be installed hopefully this week or this weekend, because in 2 weeks, like I said in my last video, I'm gonna be in Moab for 10 days or something, so obviously I won't be able to get any work done on the Subaru, so I'd love to get something done before then, but also I might be busy at work getting stuff ready for the trip and whatnot. So alright, I'm done. See you guys in the next one. Bye.